Welcome to Passive Aggressive Income. This program may contain strong language. The content may not be suitable for audiences under the age of 17. We understand many of our listeners may not agree with all of our personal viewpoints. We in no way, shape, or form mean to be offensive to anyone. Our show notes will provide all of our source material included for each episode. Now let's get passive aggressive. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Passive Aggressive Income. This week, I am really excited about Lexi's topic because she is going to go on a deep dive on being a minimalist. Is that the word for it?
Yeah, being a minimalist, I don't know if I really can consider myself like a true minimalist. I like to call myself a bad minimalist. So what that all
That's right.
entails,
That's right.
we'll get into. But yeah, this week I'm going to be talking about the what, why, and how of minimalism, and then end off with some of my favorite minimalists that I go to for inspiration, and that got me sort of interested in this topic in the first place.
Yay, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, so the what of minimalism. As the name is sort of self-explanatory, it's kind of like living with fewer possessions and only having what you need. So that can be a very broad spectrum of things. I know that I've watched like minimalists on YouTubers that like don't have a bed frame and their walls are completely empty. And as you can see behind me, my walls are not completely empty, and I do have like things. I do enjoy a more like clean, simple aesthetic, so I don't like a lot of clutter. But I do consider myself a minimalist because, well, somewhat, because I tend to I just don't like to accrue a lot of belongings, and I just feel happier and more clear-headed when I'm in a space that is not super chaotic.
Yeah, I definitely feel that like there's just too much going on. So then your brain can't, be calm and
Right.
be the moment. So I get that. Like I walk into a store and everything's like busy, busy, busy. And I'm like, I can't handle all of this.
Yes. Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I'm very much like with like a type A personality. I like
Mm,
organization. Like I love formatting. I mean, I'm going to school for software development now, so I feel like that's sort of just like fitting for me.
for sure.
Yeah. So I guess the why of minimalism, we've already sort of touched on it. Personally, I really like decluttering, and that helps me de-stress. But it's
Mhm.
also, as you know, the topic of our podcast is passive income and saving money and just being more financially stable. It's a really good way to save money when you're not spending as much on things that you don't need. And then another reason that back when I first heard of minimalism and sort of got into this whole thing was just because of the environmental impact of spending less on things you don't need and less manufacturing. You can, really help the environment if you're buying less stuff because less fossil fuels are being used, there's less need to transport things, less manufacturing, all of that. So in addition to just minimalism, I will focus a little bit on some of those things. So, buying from ethical and quality retailers and, buying secondhand and things like that. And if you listen to our podcast last week, we have Chelsea with House of Chell on. So I would suggest checking her out if you are interested in, buying quality clothes that are local and handmade and ethical, then definitely check out last week's episode.
Right. And I think it's um really important to emphasize on local as well, just because you're stimulating the local economy and you're like you said, like the transportation part of it really is just bad for our environment. So it just being mindful of all that is good on top of what you're already practicing.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't need to go to the extremes to have an
Mhm.
impact. It's really like you don't need to suddenly like get rid of everything and you don't buy anything for the next year. Like there are small steps that you can take to reach a more like healthy balance where you are not contributing so much negatively to the environment. So, yeah,
Right.
spend in your local economy, help out the people that live in your community. I think those are all really good tips. So that's a little bit about what minimalism is and the why. So now we'll get into the nitty gritty, which I think is kind of the fun stuff. In a previous episode, I believe it was episode 13, we talked about some money tips. And one of the things that I touched on was shopping and spending habits. So, just in general, reducing your spending is, obviously going to help you accumulate less things because you're not buying stuff all the time. And some of the questions that I like to ask myself before making a purchase is, does this fill a need? Does this bring me happiness? Will I regret this purchase later? Can I afford this? Do I need this now? And the list can go on and on and on, but I think it's just having that intention before just automatically saying like, oh, I like that, and having the instant gratification of making a purchase and then maybe experiencing some regret later is just like taking that pause is super important and can help you actually like save a lot of money. And yeah, I know Mims, we had talked about this a little bit in a different episode. And as someone who considers yourself more of like a maximalist than a minimalist, these are things that you said were helpful for you too in just like taking that step and thinking like, do we really like, am I going to remember this tomorrow?
Right. I think both people on each side of the spectrum should practice that whenever you're being a consumer, because, yeah, the more that there is a demand for a specific thing like a product, the more that they're going to push that out. So just being mindful of what you have already in your home, the space, your financial stance on where you're at, can you afford it? And just yeah, what it comes down to is, do you really need it as well? Like maybe you don't need it, but you really, really like it, and then you still think about it and you still want to buy it, then go for it. We're not telling you not to live your life the way you want to. It's just being mindful of how you're using your money and how you're saving and how you are setting yourself up for the future.
Yeah, exactly. That's super well said. So, in addition, if you are now deciding, okay, yeah, I want to make this purchase, or I have this need that needs to be filled, then having the like quality over quantity debate in your mind, I think is also like a really good, important thing to think about. And so this goes beyond just like buying clothes and things like that. I think it's just kind of generally good life advice with quality over quantity. I would say with friends, with food, with, for example, my real estate strategy. I like to, the duplex that I live in and I've been fixing up now is kind of a piece of shit, but I'm trying to make it nice because I
Mm-hmm.
also want quality tenants, and quality
Right.
tenants expect a quality place to live. So I think quality over quantity is just a good life advice thing that definitely falls in the spectrum of minimalism as well.
For sure.
But with that said, I understand that everyone is at a different place financially in their lives. And so quality stuff can be expensive because it's meant to last. And, ultimately, if you buy quality, it's kind of an investment because you're expecting it to last like many, many years. And if you can afford that upfront cost now, then it does pay off when you're not having to buy things over and over and over again because you bought something that was cheap and like not good quality. But,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I understand that those things can be expensive up front. So if that's not something that you can do, then I would suggest buying secondhand. Secondhand is a super affordable way to shop. And you can buy those things for, like I'm pretty sure I got this shirt that I'm wearing for like $3. And
Right.
that's super affordable. I can't just find a new t-shirt for like $3 most places these days.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe it might not last as long as like a 40 or $50 super high quality t-shirt, but it's something that is you can buy and you can afford to buy something like that over and over. And this also gives you the opportunity to buy more things if you really like to shop and you get sick of items really quickly and you're just kind of like craving that, like, oh, I want to go on a shopping trip, and like that's something you do for fun. Then buying secondhand is a good way to be able to do that in still an affordable way.
Yeah, that's how I like mentally am okay with spending money on the clothes that I get, because I go and like I have those itches to go buy some clothes, and I'm like, I spent $15 on like five things today and I feel perfectly fine. And then I don't get like that
overwhelming feeling of, oh my God, I just threw away like $100 on three articles of clothing, and
Right.
these are not, from the store, but if you shop smart when you go thrifting, you can avoid, getting things that are on its last leg. So being mindful of that too. Of if you see pilling, it's not going to last that long. If you see a lot of tear, I mean, you shouldn't buy it if you see holes in it, really, or stains. If you're buying shoes there, make sure that you look at the soles and make sure that it's not the tread is still there. And like if you like me, I buy high heels sometimes, make sure that the straps aren't just like hanging on by the thread. So really be smart about how you're buying things in quantity if you're going to the thrift or buying secondhand, because then it will last longer, especially if you buy it with tags or you buy it and it looks brand new, it's going to last just as long.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a really good skill too that kind of connects you with the product that you're actually buying is being able to look over an item of clothing and search for holes and search for, tears or strings hanging off and things like that is just like it goes beyond just like that again that instant gratification of like I bought something and this is the new thing that I'm going to forget about and not care about in the next week. It's like yeah, I analyzed this item, I decided it was a good purchase, I'm bringing it into my home and my life and I feel good about that. So yeah, taking that extra time to just make sure that what you're getting is going to last is a really good tip. Thanks, Mims.
No problem.
So the next thing I wanted to talk about with your shopping habits and spending is clothing. And I know a lot of people, especially women, not to generalize, but like clothing is something that like we take pride in, and it's how we, show ourselves to the world. And people like a lot of clothes and like a
Yeah.
lot of things. And so one thing that I've sort of been, I guess, like curating the past few years for myself is something called a capsule wardrobe. So what that is a small collection of clothes that can be put together in different ways and basically includes everything that you need to wear. So this kind of clicked for me back in 2018. I myself and my husband Alex got rid of like pretty much all of our belongings and decided to take off to Europe and Southeast Asia and took 40-liter backpacks with us and spent 6 months just traveling around. And we again only had backpacks, and so we had to think about like what kind of clothing items we had to that we could bring. And so we had to think about like how can we wear these things together and seasonality and weather changes and all of these things. And so space was really limited. So any item of clothing that we brought was it played like a key role in the wardrobe and like what we could bring. So that's when I started learning about capsule wardrobes and like, what, this is like really cool. And once we got back and we had lived with such little belongings, I think that really like um just inspired us to go a more minimalist route because we're like, we really need so little to be happy.
Right. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So now that was five years ago. I'm now getting memories of like when I was on that trip from 5 years ago. And I think today I was in Switzerland. And I am very jealous of past Lexi.
Me too.
So, yeah, keeping in that mindset now 5 years later, the things that I look for when I'm shopping for clothes are things that I think about are colors. So, you
Hmm.
want to have things that like can go well together. So, I personally this is just who I am. I don't really like a lot of vibrant colors. Like I feel unnatural if I'm wearing something super bright. I really like earth tones. I like black, white, gray, tans, things like that. So those things kind of go well together. And also thinking about patterns. Again, I'm not one for like super crazy patterns. I like some stripes every once in a while. I love a good flannel.
Yeah.
But especially with like your underlayers, you want to think about like, can I wear something over it that's like, is this going to go well? Like I, have like a plain t-shirt on right now. I have a dress that I wear over this. I can wear under a sweater. It's like a cropped t-shirt that I wear to the gym sometimes. And so like you can dress it up and down, having like that versatility, being able to layer it, being able to wear it in multiple situations and over multiple seasons is really key. And that's kind of how I look at every item of my clothing. So the dress that I wear over this t-shirt, I also have a cardigan that looks good like with that outfit, and then also with like a bunch of my other outfits, and I can dress that up or down. And so just being able to like see the connections, like I can wear this and make it look nice, or I can make it look casual, and this goes well with this. And so those are just some of the things that go through my mind when I'm shopping for like a new item of clothing. And because of that, my closet is like very small and I wear these things all the time, but I don't think anyone really notices because I find ways to wear them differently.
Yeah, I think that that brings just like a thought to my head where people wear something once and then they're like, oh, that's garbage. And I'm like, that's so cringe. So I just love that you mix and match and can dress it up, dress it down, and will wear it, with versatility. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's really fun and it kind of takes like the stress off of having to make decisions too. I know a lot of people when they talk about having like a minimalist wardrobe, they talk about like being overwhelmed by the amount of decisions that they have to make in a day. So especially with like, you wake up in the morning and you have to make breakfast and you have to shower and get ready, and maybe if you're a parent, you have to like get your kids ready for school and you have all of these responsibilities before your day even starts. And if you can just be like, oh, that goes well with this, and just pick items out of your closet, that just makes things so much more simple. And it's like one less thing that you have to stress about on a busy morning.
That's such a good point, and I never even thought about that. But yeah, the amount of decisions that we as individuals have to make each day is just, a mountain. And when this is just really refined as far as your clothing, and that it just is not even a factor. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, it's fun. And again, I want to stress when people hear the word minimalism and minimalist, I think they have this picture of like an empty room and an empty closet and um like a cartoon character wardrobe where it's like you have 10 black t-shirts and like 5 pairs of jeans and like everything's the same. And like you definitely can approach it that way. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what makes you happy. But there's more ways to do it than just that. And like I have, like a bunch of pairs of socks and they're all different and things like that. So it's not like there's no lack of anything in my life. And if I feel that there is a need to be filled, then I fill it and I feel okay about that.
Right. It doesn't have to be boring, and it doesn't have to be something that you're just kind of like living in. It can be as fun and creative as you want it to be.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are new to this sort of concept of minimalism, chances are you have a lot of things that you don't necessarily want or need that's just been sitting in a box for many months or many years, or maybe you've even been moving around place to place with them. And so my next big tip is to go through your belongings periodically. And trust me, I know this can be extremely overwhelming because I have done it. And before I started doing this periodically, when I had like all of the things from after I moved out of my parents' house and they sent a bunch of stuff along with me, it was very overwhelming to like see this huge pile of things that I own that like now I'm responsible for, and that like I don't even know what's in all of this stuff. Number one, if you're going through your things, you can make separate piles. So have a donate pile, have a throwaway pile if it's just like not salvageable. Then chances are you might have some things in there that like can also be recycled. So I would suggest having your 3 different piles and maybe go through. So you can approach this in a few different ways, maybe seasonally. So we're talking about clothes at the end of, summer, which is kind of where we're at right now. Then maybe you want to go through all of your like warm weather clothing items and you can look and be like, did I wear this? Did I even consider wearing this? If not, then maybe donate it. And so you can do that with your closet. You can do it one room at a time. If even that's overwhelming, how about you go through a drawer? You say, this week I'm going to go through one drawer, and then next week you go through the next one. And if those things start to feel more manageable, then work up to your closet, then work up to your garage, or like one like one cabinet in your kitchen or something like that. It doesn't have to be super overwhelming. And like little steps make a big difference.
For sure.
And I know going through memorabilia is very hard.
Oh my
Try
gosh,
and be
yeah.
objective. It has taken several years of me going through like my memorabilia box that basically my mom put together while I was growing up and then sent me off with. And I move a lot because I'm constantly buying properties and moving into the next unit and renovating them. And so I'm carrying this big box of things that like don't actually mean that much to me. I think mean more to like my mom than she does
Right.
for me than it does for me. So it's like, artwork from when I was like a little tiny kid or like baby clothes and things like that. And it's like, is that really like benefiting me when I have
Mm,
to stress about moving it from like house to house? Is
right.
that really like bringing me happiness? Or was that more something that like my mom felt connected with and so she wanted to save it? But like I don't have memories of these things, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah, I totally relate with that because we're house hackers too. So almost every single year we have had to move. So I had to like cut down on like all the things that I would want to move with us. And it was always the same little like box of like artwork from your childhood. And now that I'm with my husband, it's his too, and our
Right.
little baby pictures and all this stuff. And I'm like, I can't find the courage and the ability to throw these out. But I know that they're just sitting in this box, just collecting dust, and I just don't know what to do.
Yeah, I feel that so hard because yeah, once like Alex and I moved in together, then like so we each had our separate boxes and then we're like, okay, let's try and downsize it so we can like fit it in one box. And it was like the biggest tote we could find
Yeah.
that like put all of our things. And then like the next year we went through it and it got a little smaller. And the next year we went through it, got a little bit smaller again. And so I know those things can be really hard to part with, but I think there's a few things that you can do to like make it a little bit easier. Number one, you can always ask your parents or whoever, hey, do you want this? Because I kind of
Hmm.
don't. And if they
Right.
say no, like it's fine. Well, there you go. Maybe there's some of the guilt that's taken away because you just outright ask the question.
Right.
Or number two, if even that sounds kind of scary because like, it can be
Yeah.
family situations are hard, then you can take pictures of the item that was in your box, upload that to the cloud. I had like several
Mm.
photo albums of like family vacations and things like that. I spent a few hours scanning every single picture into the computer, uploaded them to Google Drive, just pay for like extra storage or whatever, you have them forever. And then you can go and like get rid of all of them and suddenly you have a way more space. So I did this with like stuffed animals from my childhood and like little trinkets and like baby clothes and pictures and like all sorts of things. And the relief of just like, I don't need this thing anymore, but I can still remember it. That feels really good.
Now that is a hot tip if I've ever heard one. I love that idea.
Yes. And it took me so long to like, I can't remember how we came to this realization, my husband and I, but we're like, wow, we've been carrying this shit around for years and it's so heavy. And like now it's just a tiny little like digital thing that I can access on the internet literally whenever I want,
I
which is
love
way
that.
better than keeping it in a box.
Oh yeah.
So I hope that helps you, Mims, and for our listeners too who are struggling to get rid of things. And so that's kind of a little bit about like how to be a minimalist. There's so many more things that I could go into detail on, but I wanted to keep it a bit more manageable and a little bit more bite-sized on like the what, why, and how. And then next I will end off on just some minimalists and people who kind of inspired me to go on this path and it probably inspired a lot of other people too. So number one is the minimalists. I believe they had a big hand in sort of like starting this movement, and they made a documentary. I think it's called the minimalist or minimalism or something like that, but they're sort of like the leaders who kind of made minimalism like a more widely known thing. I personally didn't, that's not my introduction to minimalism, so that's why I don't know a whole lot about them, but I know that there's two guys out there called the minimalists. And if you are interested in the topic, I suggest going to check them out. I think they have like meetups and all sorts of things. And then the next person is Marie Kondo. And her sort of big question that you've probably heard is like, does this item bring me happiness? Like, does this hold value in my life? And so she was the person who's like, if you are debating on making a purchase or deciding if you want to get rid of something, that does this bring me happiness phase comes from her, which I think is really cool.
You're right.
And lastly, one of my favorite YouTubers is Matt Diavella. So he does all sorts of videos on just like lifestyle things. And he's done like a bunch of 30-day challenges on like, like took like cold showers for 30 days, or I cut out caffeine for 30 days and things like that. Is also what he's known for, but he's also a minimalist. And so when I talk about the cartoon wardrobe of like 10 black shirts and, 5 pairs of black jeans and all black socks and underwear and everything, like that's him.
Oh,
And
gotcha.
which I think is cool because that's also, I think, like how my husband Alex would like live his life too, and is probably like approaching that point of just like wearing just like all the blank
One
things.
color.
Like, yeah, next time we go shopping, I'm buying 3 pairs of black jeans because I only got one last time and I definitely could use more. And I'm like, you know what? You do you. I support.
Right.
But yeah, Matt Diavella is awesome. He just makes like these types of topics super approachable and like shares his tips and tricks. So I suggest checking him out on YouTube also, and his videos are super aesthetically pleasing, which is like very much what I need in my life.
Yeah, seriously.
So that's a bit about minimalism. Hopefully that term sounds a little bit less scary and weird and overwhelming than it did at the beginning of this episode, because I found that it's brought a lot of value and clarity to my life and a lot less stress, especially when I am moving all the time.
Yeah, it's, as a maxi, I really, I think a lot of it's helpful, with my, the way I handle and go about things. So I really loved it. Thank you for going on a deep dive on that. And I'm sure
Yeah.
our listeners are going to really just enjoy the content too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you guys for listening. Like I said, if you didn't listen to last week's episode and you're interested in buying some like local clothes from a small business owner, House of Chell, definitely check out last week's episode. And next week, Mims will be leading the way on another topic. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. Bye, you guys.
All right. Bye. Passive Aggressive Income was written, recorded, edited, and produced by co-hosts and creators Mims and Lexi. We truly want to thank our listeners, collaborators, friends, and family that continuously support us for all the love we receive. If you enjoy our show, please give us a glowing rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram to see what we are up to. For any inquiries, please email passiveaggressiveincome2023@gmail.com. Episodes of Passive Aggressive Income are available wherever you listen to podcasts, so make sure to subscribe and like us on your favorite streaming platform.